Tall Boys and Trackmasters is brought to you by Expert Exhaust. Expect more for your money. MTB Shock Dock, your choice for suspension needs. High Gear Success. From helping racers get sponsored to motorsports event operation and promotion, shift your passion into high gear.
Track 93, the place to get ready to race.
And by IADV. From routes, guided tours, and more, we'll help you get lost.
Yeah, for some reason, when I see a log, my sphincter tightens, I start to tremble, I go all sweaty.
I'm a big fan of the 1.5 pork chop cans, personally.
Gotta make sure you get your protein and carbohydrates all in one shot.
Yep.
Nice looking bike.
That thing would look good with a hot blender too.
Yes, it would. Yeah, not gonna lie. Yes, it does.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome into episode 78 of Tall Boys
And Trackmasters.
Well, it's the Vegas recap show. We figured we'd dress up a little bit, look like we were hitting the slot machines and the crap tables.
No.
Trevor, how you been, brother?
Pretty good. Still, settling in, getting stuff unpacked at home, and I've been staying pretty busy with all that.
I'm sure you have been. I've got some goodies to give you to lighten up your background there a little bit too. So
Awesome. Yeah, this is definitely not the permanent spot, but
yeah,
there's no Wi-Fi out in the detached garage currently, and it's not heated. The floor heat not been turned on before we bought this place, so
not a good time of year to be out there doing things.
yeah, it's a little chilly, but so it's I'm excited to hear about your tales of Vegas.
Well, I've got tales of success, tales of woe. It was very interesting traveling there and back. On the whole, like, the show itself was really fun. It was really cool to see some new bikes, some new products, and kind of, network a little bit, talk to some people that I've talked to online, obviously never met in person, and, line some stuff up for the future of the show. But, I'll get into it later, but it's probably the worst travel experience I've ever had in my life. It was not very fun. So
yeah, I could count on one hand the number of positive plane experiences I've ever had.
Yeah, it was.
Not.
I had to keep looking behind me because I thought that there was a film crew following me, filming planes, trains, and automobiles too. That's how bad it was.
Or like the Truman Show.
yeah, that's what it felt like. Yeah, was that Christoph was up in the clouds watching me?
Yeah.
All right. Well, obviously, we took advantage of the opportunity of being able to do some media at AIM Expo 2025 in Las Vegas. Flew out. I actually missed the first day of the show, wasn't able to get there in time. So I was there Thursday and Friday. So that was the second and third day of the show. Basically, going into it, I kind of had a kind of frame of thought of how I figured it was going to go, but it really didn't go that way. To be completely honest with you, I was kind of disappointed in the major manufacturers. Other than Suzuki, nobody really brought any of their new stuff. I know we talked off camera, hopefully thinking that maybe Kawasaki was going to have that middleweight adventure bike they haven't released yet there.
Yeah, I really thought for sure that they were going to, given, they went through some significant lengths to kind of tease it.
Yeah.
Having in that crate, you could see that it had a low fender and a fairing and all that stuff on the front, and that was disappointing to me, and I didn't even get to attend. So
yeah. So Kawasaki didn't have really anything. I think they had a KX450 and a TRX side by side. That was it.
y'all,
KTM did not have any of the 390 Adventure R's. I figured maybe we'd see one of those there.
that's really disappointing.
Yeah, KTM Gas and Husky stuff. I mean, it was okay, but it was stuff that you can go see at any dealership. And what I saw firsthand was you saw all these kind of smaller manufacturers like Moto Morini, Royal Enfield, and the like. Those were the ones that went all out and all above and beyond to try to wow you. So I had to kind of take a step back and think to myself, well, this show is targeted at dealers. So 90% of the time, that dealership already has these big manufacturers in their place already. So obviously the little brands that you don't hear about are the ones that are going to be going all out to try to get into those dealerships. And I think I had to kind of switch my frame of thought there and frame of reference before I got really disappointed. But it was cool. And we'll go through it. I got a lot of pretty good video here, some different machines. And it was a good 2 days. And I had a good time. I know next year it's in Anaheim, California. I probably won't be going back to it. If it would come to the East Coast, I would consider that. But I don't want to travel that far anymore for
You're
this.
not eager to jump back on a plane.
No. I was ready to jump off the plane about the second day of my travels. So
It's like when I travel for work, it seems we always end up at Chicago, and it's always either there's so little time between layovers that we're really or so little time to catch a connecting flight. We're worried if we're even going to be able to get it, or it's such a significant amount of time between flights. It's almost quicker to land in Chicago and then drive 30 minutes.
Well, I attempted that, and I'll get into that here after a while. But Chicago is a horrible place to try to fly anywhere out of. So don't recommend
fly,
that.
drive, walk, exist in.
Yeah.
I'm really just not a fan of the city.
Yeah, the like. So first walking into AIM Expo, the first thing you saw when you come down on there was Suzuki. And I'll give Suzuki props. They went all out. They had a very good booth and a good setup. And we're gonna play some of this stuff and you'll follow along with us here. But this was Cycle World's V-Strom 800 Rally. I know me and you have talked about this and saw some clips and video, before we went here. But I believe that they took this and competed in some of the NORA rally events and some of the Baja stuff. This thing was really cool to see in person. They let you set on it. I got to put a leg over it, which was the first time I've ever done that on one of these V-Strom 800s. And I was very impressed. Suzuki came out swinging there in the middleweight segment, and this bike was no hold bar. It had everything on it you could possibly want in any type of adventure bike. And it's definitely something that I would put in my garage. That's for sure. And up next was probably
was
what's that
supposed to pop up on the screen when you were talking about the 800?
What's that?
Were you meaning to do a screen share when you were talking about the 800?
It should be popping up right now.
I didn't get anything on my
you might not be able to see it on your end then.
Okay.
But next up is the DRZ4S, which was a bike that we've talked about on the show previously. I was pretty surprised at the overall dimensions of this thing. It seemed to me like it was more DR350-ish. Like it wasn't a full-size DRZ. Like the dimensions had changed of it. Like it didn't seem like the seat height was as tall. It didn't seem like the overall height, weight, and width weren't. All the dimensions were smaller than the old DRZ was. And I wasn't knocking it. People say that it's heavier and it weighs more than the old DRZ did. I didn't feel that. I feel like that the way that they've kind of kept the center of gravity, the weight seems low. And it felt good, between the legs.
I guess when people, myself included, complain about the weight of a DRZ 400, it's the felt weight, not necessarily the weight. If you get it on a scale, it's the felt weight. The DRZ 400 carried its weight really high in the chassis. For them to hopefully have come back and improved that weight distribution, and makes it a a lot more attractive option even if it did gain a little bit of weight.
Yeah, and unfortunately the clip's not playing where I kind of do a walk around of it, but you know, in person, it was an attractive looking machine. The headlight doesn't look as terrible in person. There's actually a little, like on the number plate, the lines kind of flow to the center of the headlight. I know it's not that big of a light, but you know, overall, good bike, and I feel that you know the upgrades we've talked about before. It's going to get them back into the market share that they were in the past. You know, in Suzuki or in Australia and Europe and that thing. But at the same time, when you have these other bikes coming into this light adventure segment, I think Suzuki's right there with this new DRZ 4S, and it'll sell well. Up next, right behind Suzuki's booth, was the Moto Morini booth, which out of all the smaller manufacturers, probably they tried the hardest and they went all out. So I'll let this first clip play. This is the Moto Morini 1200. I don't know if you can you see that now, Trevor?
Yes.
Okay. That's not playing now. Great.
Well, for the 2.5 seconds, I could see it.
I love the technical difficulties.
Yeah,
basically,
spoked wheels.
Yeah, spoked wheels, 19-inch front, 17-inch rear. Moto Morini is, for all intents and purposes, a Chinese copy of a Versys Kawasaki.
Yep.
So this is the Versys 1000, basically. I didn't get a chance to set on this thing, but this is a huge bike. This thing was ginormous, and it's a porker. I mean, yeah, I would say that there's a market out there for this thing if you're wanting to get into a dirt cheap, kind of sport touring model that maybe is possible to do some gravel road here and there. But, it didn't really tickle my fancy. And
I don't know. Bikes like that, it's difficult to figure out what niche they're trying to fill. You're competing against a Kawasaki Versys, which can be had for
not very much more money.
And on the used market, you can find a Versys with low miles for pretty good prices.
Yeah, let's see if it'll play now. I can get a little bit better walk around. Maybe not. Not sure what's up with that. Up next, now I didn't get to really get an in-depth look at this thing. I wish I would have. It seemed like every single time that I tried, the Moto Morini guys were showing some other person the bike. But this is the Escape 700,
right?
Which was one of the stars of the show, if we're being honest. It comes in at $8,000, more horsepower than the 650 Escape. Some upgrades here and there to the TFT dash, and just overall, a nice little refresh of the 650, which has been pretty popular just because of its price point. Yep. When you can get into that thing for $8,000 with a 3-year warranty out the door, and comes with Pirelli Rally Scorpion tires on it, I mean, it's pretty well all ready to go.
That's a pretty compelling option, out the door.
Dude, Moto Morini was funny. They had like a marching band come in and play this little ditty when they were releasing or taking the curtains off all the bikes and stuff. Like, out of all of the smaller brands, they put in the most effort. And up next is
fully kitted out.
I think I figured out how to make sure this plays, but this is the Moto Morini 700 with all of their options. So they have an entire accessory catalog, and this is everything that you can possibly get from one of these stuck orders.
High mount exhaust.
Race Marine.
Nice addition.
So the base model is $8,000, and I talked to the one sales guy, and by the time you got done putting all that stuff on, I think it was over 10 grand once you put all that stuff on there. But I mean,
that pales in comparison to Fred Miller's $30,000 KTM 500.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, it had everything you want on it. Bash plates and hand guards and a little bit better navigation screen. Knobby tires, pretty much everything that you would want before you would take off road.
Taking a page out of the playbook, a lot of these side-by-side manufacturers went that direction where you could buy straight from the dealer, straight from the showroom floor, the modifications and everything.
Mm-hmm.
It does save you the headache in some cases of trying to figure out like what brand's products actually fit your bike the way they said they were going to.
Right.
I could see why somebody want to offer something that's modified from the factory.
Yeah, and that was one of their selling points there too, was, you didn't have to go anywhere else. You could order all this stuff and the dealer would install it for you. It doesn't affect the warranty at all. Yeah, I have seen some cases where, you put some aftermarket products on something and something breaks on your T7 or what have you, that, yet that warranty is null and void after that. So it's unfortunate.
That's why you keep your stock parts and always revert back to stock before you try to get a warranty claim.
Put the DPF filter back on your Royal Enfield, right?
Yep.
Speaking of Royal Enfield, they had a pretty cool booth. So here is the new 450. And, seeing this thing in person for the first time, it's one of those bikes, I feel personally, where certain angles you look at it, you're like, this thing is really nice looking. And then certain other angles, you're like, oh, this is hideous. It's not very appealing. It's kind of an ugly duckling. But seeing the fit and finish of the bike in person, being able to give it throw the leg over it and kind of set on it there, I would definitely consider one of these for a light adventure bike if I was in the market for one of those. It felt slightly porky, but nothing terrible than any other kind of bike in that segment, and the LED or LCD screen and display. We've talked about that in the past, where it can hook up with your GPS signal straight from your phone. I mean, you don't see that on any other bike, and just seeing this thing in person, I was a huge fan of it. I can see the appeal, and I believe they, once we start seeing it kind of roll into more dealerships here in the United States, you're going to start seeing a lot of them out there on the trail.
I mean, from a standpoint of improvement between the previous generation of the Himalayan and now, on paper, it's night and day. Massive suspension improvements. Going to a liquid cooled engine as opposed to air cooled, which I know some people have some differing opinions on that, but your point about the aesthetics of the bike, where from certain angles it looks really good and from other angles it just looks kind of odd. I think, all things considered, they did a good job, because a lot of Royal Enfield's, I guess, brand image is like vintage retro bikes and stuff like that. So to try to modernize it and not lose, I guess, a big part of your brand image is probably pretty difficult to do.
It is, but I feel that they really, for everything trying to accomplish that, they did a bang up job. I mean, it still looks retro, it still looks Royal Enfield, it still looks like a scrambler from the 60s, 70s, but it does have that modern touch with, obviously a 450cc liquid cooled engine and modern suspension and stuff. I was a fan of it. I thought it was really cool.
I'm a sucker for round headlights. In an age where it seems that every bike has turned towards some weird alien eye looking monstrosity, I really just like the clean look of a round headlight.
So Royal Enfield also had another bike. I sent this to you. This was probably one of my favorite bikes of the entire show.
That's my favorite bike of the show so far.
And I actually got a little press release about this machine. I wanted to make sure I didn't mess up anything about this. So that bike right there belongs to road racing phenom Michaela Moore of Royal Enfield's Build Train Race program.
Super cool.
That is a 2-time BTR road racing champion bike, and it is an INT 650 based machine from Royal Enfield. It had KYB front fork swapped onto it. You can see the aftermarket exhaust, but still an air cooled, old school style 650. And they did a lot of time attack races with this machine. And apparently Michaela Moore is a badass. I'd love to talk to her. So that's that machine. So here's another one that, kind of came out of left field. And I would say out of every single machine there at the show, this one had the biggest crowd around it both days I was there. And that's the Thumpstar 500cc two-stroke. This was definitely something to behold. So if you guys aren't familiar with Thumpstar is a pit bike company based out of Australia. They have pretty much every Chinese-style little pit bike machine you can think of. They also sell a 300cc two-stroke, which is essentially the same thing as the GPX TSE 300.
What's
This
that?
is the same chassis
Oh, hell
as
yeah.
as that machine. It uses the BRC, which is a engine building company out of Canada. They take CR 500 engines and add a 6th gear and an electric start with an electron carburetor. Now I'll play that again, but you know, this was just kind of an attention getter to see if there was interest in them building anything like this. Now, obviously, if they were to do that, it wouldn't be as involved as this thing was. I mean, you could tell by the swing arm that this has a lot
I
of
was going
one-offs,
to
custom
comment on
CNCs.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was going to comment on the swing arm.
I asked the guy, I was like, you know,
that swing arm.
why'd you make the swing arm like that? And he said, why not?
What's
So that was kind of what the entire
Yeah.
point of this
Oh,
bike
hell yeah.
was, you know, we're capable of doing this. Why not do it? And
See, they're on a showing company.
yeah, they're
That
out of
what you said?
Australia.
Yeah, I'm surprised that combining 500cc and 2-stroke that close together, that the Australian Environmental Agency didn't bust their door down immediately.
Yeah, I think they may fall under some of that that small manufacturer
Yep.
kind of, you know, safety valve there. You
That's
know,
a
not
good
producing
place to
content.
be.
Yeah, you know, but and like I said, it was a huge buzz about the thing. Everybody and their brother was over it all 2 days. I was there, and from what they were saying, there was enough interest for them to pursue the project further. Now, you know, obviously, they said that it may not have a BRC exact CR500 engine, but that's what it would be based on. You're going to have that one had Olin suspension. You're not going to have that on the production model. It'll definitely be detuned a lot, but just judging from the you know, the hype that I saw from the show, I feel that this is a project you'll probably see move forward for Thumbstar, which was really cool. And they had the 302 stroke there too, which, you know, for all intents and purposes, it's an exact rip-off copy of a 2017 KTM 300 EXC. So, but it was cool. Next up, this was KTM's booth,
Kind of disappointed there's no.
and this is it, man. They had one of their E-Rod bikes, I think it was a 350 EXC, and then an 890 Adventure R. It wasn't even a Rally 390, or 890. So, you know, and KTM, Husky, and Gas, the booths were all the same. They had an e-bike, they had a, you know, off-road machine, and then one of their bigger adventure bikes. So, yeah, kind of disappointing.
Pretty
I was
disappointing. It does not bode well given the, you know, financial issues that we've discussed on the show in the past of Pierre Mobility Group.
Yeah. One funny thing, and I told this to you before I left, was when I was looking at the floor plan and the show layout, right behind KTM and attached to their booth was the MV Augusta booth, which
Yeah.
we know that they just dropped MV Augusta, so they had to do a show together, even though they weren't partners anymore, which I thought was kind of interesting and funny. All right. Next up is a bike that I think we're both super excited about, especially because of all the hype in the waiting game that we played with the 250 and the fact that it's now available as an enduro model. I feel like we're going to see that again with this one. And this was the 450 Triumph. So I got to throw a leg over this one as well. If any of you have ridden a 06 to 07, 08-ish YZ or WR Yamaha 4-stroke, the chassis will feel right at home to you. That's exactly what this thing felt like. It felt slightly slimmer and a little lighter, and the steering angle was a little steeper than those machines, but, you know, very well kitted out, very well put together, and something that I would definitely throw a leg over and rip anytime.
Still crazy to me to see the Triumph bikes actually like in production.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt like we talked about that every other episode for like, you know, a good year or more.
Right.
Like, you know, it's dropping any day now. So
We're going to tease the clutch lever. Let's tease the knobby on the front wheel, you know.
Here's an interview with the engineer that created the threads on the clutch cover.
All right, that's my bad error. Yeah, so obviously we've got Johnny Walker on the 250. He's been doing very well. Triumph has been doing extremely well in Supercross in the 250 class so far.
They have.
I believe they had the points lead there at one point. So yeah, continuing to see some development there with the 450, and I would predict that it's not going to be very much longer after it's released that we see an enduro model, and maybe we'll see one with blinkers and a plate. That would be fantastic as well.
I would definitely like to see one with a plate.
Yeah. All right. Up next is I did stop by Yamaha's booth. Kind of the same thing as Kawasaki. Honestly, they had a few machines there, but not really a huge presence. I mean, they did have some street bikes, like the MT-09 was there, but obviously that's something that we're not that interested in. But I did want to show this quick clip of the 2025 World Raid T7, and you can actually get this thing slightly different color scheme now. Pay attention to the white side panels. That kind of makes it look like the YZ motocross bikes, in my opinion. I was a fan of it. I thought it kind of set it apart a little bit, made it look
very like WR250R-esque.
Yeah,
they have the iconic, well, some people iconic. I thought it looked cool, like white side panels and
right. Yeah, it was a cool machine. I enjoyed that one. So
instead of bold new graphics, bold new plastics.
Yeah, the 2024 came with the update with the TFT display and some of the different rider modes and stuff. So they did do a slight refresh on it, and obviously this is bold new graphics basically for the 25 model year. All right, let's pull up the next one I got, which was, I believe, Rocky Mountain. It was their T7, and it kind of had all of their parts and goodies on it.
Rocky Mountain is fully kitted out. T7.
You see, it's got all their crash bars and all their luggage. And I went by the Rocky Mountain booth several times in both days, and no one was there both times. All the times I went by, I was going to stop and talk to those guys, but there wasn't anybody there.
Nobody was working the booth.
Nobody was working the booth. Everybody was just must be out checking out other stuff. So
that's what happens when you have a company that's operated and worked by enthusiasts. You get them around the bike convention, they want to go check everything out. So
that's a good point. I didn't think about that.
Understand that.
All right, and let's see, one of the last new machines that was there. So Piaggio owns Moto Guzzi, Aprilia, a lot of the bigger Italian companies, and they had an Aprilia Touareg there, but they haven't really updated anything with the 660 for a while, so it's kind of the same thing. But I did get to take a look at the Moto Guzzi Stelvio, and I was impressed with it. It was a big machine, but cool looking anyway.
Moto Guzzi.
The guy laughed there at the booth whenever I said that.
Stelvio.
That thing would be fun on the hard loop, wouldn't it?
I'm sure Dave Porter would give it a shot, buddy. Hopefully the head tube's a little bit stronger than the top mount for the BMW tail levers front suspension.
Let's see if he can rip that apart there. So, all right, let's see. Now that's pretty much it for the the major manufacturers and the bikes that I was able to see. Like I said, this really wasn't a whole lot there. Now, on the other token, dude, this whole entire show seemed like it was about e-bikes. There was every electronic motorcycle company you can think of was there, man. And
I was just about to ask if Shark had any presence there.
I don't think I saw them there. I did see Sprint, which was whenever me and Tyler and the boys went down to Hatfields, we actually saw two guys with the Sprint e-bikes down there, and that was one of the first ones I saw. But get a load of this e-bike from Segway. So Segway is, obviously the kind of mobility, like two-wheel scooter brand you've seen for years, doing the little rental mobility things and whatnot. But they have a full line of side-by-sides, motorcycles. I was kind of impressed, but out of all of the e-bikes, this was the most, I want to say, normal-ish looking bike. But get a load of the back of this thing whenever I play this, Trevor. You'll get a kick out of the rear suspension on this.
Segway rally bike.
So this was their rally model. And if you look at the rear suspension. Old school, baby. I did talk
I can't believe it. My Trail 90 called it once its rear suspension back. I never dreamed that I would see a modern machine use twin shocks for the rear without like trying to be a retro bike.
Yeah.
That's such an odd setup.
It was odd. I could not, and this is the thing that makes me kind of angry with the whole e-bike market is, the guy was telling me everything about it, 21-inch front wheel, 18-inch rear, yada, yada, yada. I believe it was similar to like an Alta power-wise. And I'm like, all right, well, this is obviously set up as an adventure rally machine. What's the distance? So like, what's your charge range and that kind of thing? They would not tell me what it was. They beat around the bush. And I was like, come on, guys, what if you're going to set this up to do rally racing, obviously it's got to finish the event. So what are we talking about here? And they just would not release that to me.
All show, no go, man. They even let the intern design the rear suspension on that thing. So
well, they ran out of budget when they got to the end of it there. So
yeah. Yeah, that is something that's extremely disappointing. Like with wet weight, dry weight, et cetera, manufacturers always embellish, right?
Mhm.
But we're getting to the point now, like you stated, with e-bikes that they'll just openly lie about like an effective range. They'll have like their own weird little formula to estimate the range, as opposed to just having guys log a couple hundred hours and then see like we went X miles on this day, et cetera, et cetera. So I know one guy watching YouTube with a KTM free ride was talking about the effective range of that thing, and he said if you're actually getting on it and trying to ride aggressively through the woods, that it's quite disappointing. It was an older free ride.
Yeah,
maybe about 5 years old or something like that. But
I'm gonna run through these pretty quickly here next. But this was the Sprint, which kind of had a Cookie Monster theme, which I know my kids would love. And we got to follow these down at Tornado at Hatfield, and those guys were hauling butt. I mean, I was impressed with the speed and how it was soaking everything up.
Cookie Monster theme. Cool.
So there's the Sprint bike. Let's see.
My goodness, you'd have enough seat to fill 2 zip codes when you're changing from one to the other.
Let's see. Up next was the Sur-On Ultra B, which is another one that's
Yep.
I'd say as close as we're going to get to being a dirt bike.
Sur-On Ultra B.
It definitely had the most suspension travel out of all of the off-road e-bikes that I saw there. You can see the front end. It kind of looks dual sportish. Lots of how do I put this correct? Well, we're not really that politically correct anyway, but lots of Asian and Pakistan and Indian representation there as well, and they were all over the e-bike stuff. On Friday, whenever I was headed back down the monorail to the show, there was 2 guys I kind of overheard their conversation. One guy owned an e-bike dealership in Nebraska, and there was another guy that was there with him that was some kind of marketing distribution guy for a bunch of e-bike stuff, and they were talking, and there were some interesting points that I heard was, in a lot of states, you can't sell just electric motorcycles. You also have to sell gas motorcycles alongside of the e-bikes. And, they were kind of struggling with finding worthwhile companies to put into their dealerships. And I know the one guy that was running the dealership in Nebraska even said that, you have such an influx of these Chinese electric bikes coming in now that it's hard for them to, establish themselves and separate themselves from those brands. And he was also complaining that I guess a lot of these e-bike companies, they distribute them to the dealerships. They're not really like, set up, with the dealership, but the manufacturer would change the price, and these dealers were finding out on social media about the price change. Not, there was no direct communication with them.
Yeah.
And the guy was complaining because he's like, I just sold a friend of mine's 2 kids, to two of these machines 3 days ago, and then I find out on social media that we lowered the price, and no one told me. And he's like, now I've overcharged him $400. Like, yeah, it's kind of not a good, not a good business model from what I was
not a
seeing
good
here.
look, and stuff like that like spreads around in a enthusiast community,
Yeah,
whether it was your fault or not. So yeah, I could understand that.
it's interesting.
Something that I think we've touched on in the past regarding e-bikes is how so many of them are mountain bikes with electric motors,
Yeah.
not necessarily dirt bikes with electric motors. I could definitely see, like, I would pick up an e-bike, you know, to have something the same vein of like a Honda TLR 200 Reflex, which was, a plated trials bike from, I think, the late 80s. The trials company OSA had a bike called the Explorer, which was essentially a trials bike with like a seat, stuff like that, like just short course technical type stuff. But we're a ways away from them being able to do like a 200-mile dual sport trip, and not be absolutely sweating bullets and hoping for a tailwind wherever you went.
Yeah, I hope it's light enough like the sprints where you can just pick them up and carry them out of the woods if need be.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they could sell a mod for those sprints. You'd have 2 backpack straps, so when you ran out of card, you could just pick it up and away you go.
Like a transformer.
Yeah.
Now, alongside with AIM Expo, there was another show that was going on. It was called the One Motorcycle Show, and it was kind of more for Harley Davidson customs and some vintage stuff. So they did have some cool vintage bikes there that I did get some quick clips of. Here's an old Honda CL350, which was absolutely beautiful. Yeah, pristine.
Very nice.
Pretty sure it had what did the guy say, like 1,400 miles on it, I believe. So it was just a cream puff. I did see the absolute bane of children everywhere in the mid to late 70s, which I do believe my father had one of these machines as well. Let me see if I can pull it up here. A Honda MR50 Elsinore.
The absolute death trap of the 19th.
Really cool machine.
Absolute death trap. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's what I said. Super rare too, man. You don't see those anywhere. And the last kind of cool old bike, which was one that I sent to you, and I even said on the video, I kind of addressed it straight to you. Now, this lady had a very awesome setup. She owned a little coffee company, and she had a motorcycle as her coffee bar.
About a Ural coffee machine, Trevor.
So the sidecar was made into the coffee bar for the Ural. Really cool.
She should incorporate the name into the tagline, like, try our coffee. You're all gonna love it.
Yep.
That's really cool. I like Ural from like a mechanical standpoint. Being a mechanical engineer, I really like Soviet sledgehammer simple mechanics. But the downside to those bikes is they're not particularly like reliable, from my understanding. Having a bike with a sidecar that you can shift into 2-wheel drive is a pretty cool concept. But the price for what you get and everything, and usability issues kind of steers you away.
So obviously, along with all the manufacturers, you had a slew of parts manufacturers that were there as well. And you had everybody from, big companies like Rocky Mountain, Turn 14, Distribution, to mom and pop places that I got a chance to talk to, especially one, Power Cell Products. That guy was awesome. So, I kind of tried to highlight some of the lesser known brands. That was kind of my whole goal when I was there. And obviously anybody that I saw really didn't have anybody at the booth, but maybe had something that we'd be interested in, I tried to make it a point to go and talk to them as well. And there was places I wanted to talk to, and they were just absolutely swamped too. But I'll go down through some of these. Now, the first one was ABBA lifts. Now, if you're looking for a stout motorcycle lift, dude, I don't think there's anything else you need other than this thing. Look at this giant BMW GS lifted out of the air. It was pretty impressive.
That's pretty cool. That's a really beefy hydraulic cylinder.
Yeah, it is, and everything folded up, and it pretty affordably priced. It wasn't horribly bad, but that was a really cool one. Let me find one that I actually got to talk to. We've talked about this on the show in the past, how, and I've seen other places talk about this, where there wasn't really a dedicated motorcycle toolkit. Like, you couldn't just, pick a company that had it made and set up and ready to go for you. And I did find one here. This was Cruise Tools. These guys were really, really cool. And I'll just let this clip play and you guys can check this out. It's something I'm interested in.
Yeah. So, you know what, so as a business, maybe I mentioned this today, that 50% overall is
Cruise Tools.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Good.
What we got here for 2025?
Well, we've got motorcycle-specific toolkits. They're built specifically for different brands, different types of riding. Our new product this year is Freedom Bikes.
Yeah.
So it's Switchback.
Check out how small these are.
Is that it's a full toolkit, but it's compact. It's in
That is
pouch.
awesome.
Weighs 1.7 pounds, but it lets you do everything.
Yeah.
Trail side, so it's very complete. They're full-size.
That one is really close
Yeah.
to the toolkit I ride through after.
KTM and Japanese bikes.
Yeah, well, I own a
Years of
KTM,
riding.
and you're constantly working on it, so I know we're at that.
Yeah, so like you said, if you didn't catch it there, it's 1.7 pounds, and it literally has everything you need in it except for tire spoons. And I've never seen another kit packed down as much as that. And it was, I believe it was $69.99 for the Euro spec one that would do Sherco, KTM, and gas, and it was $68 for the Japanese bikes. So not a terrible price to pay, especially if you're looking for the absolute lightest, most minimalistic toolkit you can possibly get.
The only thing I can think of that would be smaller and lighter would be Motion Pro used to have like some weird little, like, I don't know, they might still sell it, like multi-tool type thing, was a bunch of different bits and like a bit driver and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you get, it's like a Leatherman does a lot of things a little bit worse than every tool that it's supposed to be. Like, it's a little bit worse than a fixed blade knife. It's a little bit worse than a pair of good needle nose pliers. Having a toolkit like that that's compact and has actual tools, not like just a stamped steel wrenches that most of these bikes come with, that'd be good for starting out.
Yeah, as soon as my paycheck comes in, I'll be ordering one of those for the KTM, just to have something that I can pack down and get a little bit smaller.
You'd always try the Arthur Punsack toolkit.
Just don't take any and just hope everybody else has it.
Just
with
have a couple good riding buddies.
Up next was KKE, which they're pretty well known for making aftermarket wheel sets. I know that Tyler Vincent, our buddy, had a set on his DRZ 400 that he had good success with. And if you put those side by side with Tusk or Warp 9 or any of these companies, you can kind of tell that they're all made in the same factory. But one thing that I didn't know about KKE was they actually offer a lot more stuff than just wheels. Check this out. Steering stabilizers.
That's interesting.
They had complete front end kits too, up to 50 millimeter, fully adjustable, rebound compression.
Nice.
And it really wasn't that expensive. So if you had some kind of custom machine you were trying to put together, might be an option for you. Or maybe an older bike that you're wanting to convert to better front suspension. I was a fan of it.
Oh, let's see.
So another company that I got a chance to sit down and talk with was Spectra Oils. Those guys were really, really cool. And from what they were saying, I guess MotorX bought Spectro. So if you're looking for maybe a slightly cheaper version of oil change for your KTM or Beta, whatever have you, these guys have you covered. They also had the Cove MX250 there, which we talk about towards the end of the video.
All right, guys, I'm here at the Spectro booth with Joseph.
Joe Russo.
Yeah, buddy, how you doing?
Good. I'm the national sales manager.
Okay.
We're here representing the product line. We're also doing a new Group 3 synthetic for 2050 for Harley Davidsons.
Cool.
But we do cover a full range, everything. Pretty much we have an oil for every bike. The engine oil, gear oil, fork oils, brake fluids, coolants. We have well over 220 SKUs. We do bulk oil, 55-gallon drums.
Yeah.
We're here just promoting to dealers in the area, supporting our regional distribution. Our regional distributors came out, and we got to hang out with them and meet their sales reps.
Cool. It's always good.
We've been a legendary. We did this show every year since it started. And, we love to support the Expo and hope that they keep doing this to give us the opportunity to meet new dealers and new people out here.
Awesome. You guys have a complete line of everything you would ever need for a dual sport or adventure bike. Now, I also see you have the Cove MX250 over here. You guys are the factory oil for Cove now, correct?
We talked with the owner, Gary, who does distribution out of Utah.
Yeah.
This is their new 250 four-stroke. We provide all the four-stroke oils. We do the two-strokes for their pit bikes up through their 300 two-stroke.
Right.
Every single crate that goes out has our first oil change for the customer.
Nice.
So just to really introduce the product and bring the two brands together.
Great.
And it's been a great partnership. We'll be continuing this for years to come.
Nice. All right. Well, appreciate your time, Joe.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Thanks for it.
All right, man.
Have a good day.
Yeah, so that was really cool. I don't know if you guys could hear that well or not, but Spectro has actually partnered up with GPX and Cove. So every single time you get one of those bikes in the crate, the first oil change comes in the crate from Spectro, which is something I thought was pretty interesting and cool.
I think so too. That was a big gripe with Chinese bikes for years and years and years, was how not ideal the factory oil was.
Right.
And Spectro has been around for a good while. A lot of guys swear by it. To have a partnership to kind of get the name out there, hopefully it'll help to boost their sales and improve things for them.
Yeah, and I believe I saw Spectro stuff at Walmart a while back, so it's pretty accessible. It's out there and easy to get if you need it. I'm gonna share this next one. So I don't know if those of you that follow the show, you may remember this has been several months back. We actually had a industry news segment on a heads-up display unit from a certain company, and those guys were there at the show. I got to talk to them, so I will let this play. This is Moto Eye heads-up display.
Moto Eye Helmet Smart heads-up display. Let's talk to the gentleman. It has cameras front and rear on the helmet, 240 degrees of view. Hooks up to Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. USB-C charger. It detects impacts. Can automatically call the emergency service if you need to. There's their line of helmets. Starting at about $600 and working its way up to $1,800 if you want the top of the line daddy. Check them out. Really cool stuff.
So one thing that I really liked, Ambrose was the guy's name that kind of runs the whole thing. Super nice guy, really great to talk to. One thing that I did appreciate, they had their Cranium line of helmets, which already had everything installed for you. You didn't have to do anything. And it just depended on what features you wanted. Like the base model helmet that still had everything that we would probably need was, about $600. Now the top of the line helmet, it had 2 cameras in the back that gave you a 240 degree field of view behind you, everywhere around. It was about $1,800, but they also sold just the Moto Eye setup, and it was a modular setup that would fit in pretty much every helmet. It just basically had this cool sticker that went on the visor of the inside of your helmet. And the guy pulled it up for me. We had Gaia from my phone pulled right up inside that lens of the helmet, which I thought was really cool, especially the motorcycle guys like us that like to do the 24 hours of Appalachia events. Man, that'd be something neat to just have the directions right up there on your helmet visor ready to go. So something that I think is technology that's going to kind of continue to grow and something that we're going to see in the future for sure with the heads-up display. Kind of look like the old, well, I say old now, but like the early 2000s Corvettes that used to have it on the windshield whenever you're driving down the road. Something that was neat. Let's see. Find something else that we had. I got to show you this one. It was really interesting. Ram Mounts was there. Got to talk to them a little bit. They had some pretty cool stuff. Some new stuff for 2025. But do you see back there in the back corner on the left? I'll zoom in on it here in a second. Whenever
you'll have to go back.
Well, when I go through you just let the clip play. You'll see it here towards the end. This is the biggest ram mount I've ever seen in my life, and I asked the guy what it was for, and it was kind of interesting what that was actually made for, and it's actually something that would be used in our area, which I thought was interesting. Then talking to him about that, we got on a whole separate tangent, but yeah, we'll get to it here.
The compensator.
Look at that. That thing weighed 13 pounds.
I'm surprised that they could even injection mold
that
thick of fiber reinforced nylon.
The ball parts of it were plastic. They were fiber reinforced, but the outside sleeve of the ram mount itself was actually metal. And I asked the guys, what in the world do you use that to mount stuff with? And they actually use that for underground mining equipment to mount the control panels on and be able to be modular.
Really cool, actually.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. And so I told him, he saw that I was from West Virginia. He's like, we've sold a lot of that stuff in West Virginia. I was like, wow, that's kind of interesting. So didn't think about that, but yeah, that was pretty cool. That thing was crazy expensive.
I can't even imagine. There's a reason why I have one single Ram mirror that I swap between all my bikes.
Yeah, same here. For those of you that maybe didn't get a chance to see it, I did get to talk to our buddy Kyle Bradshaw from Nelson Rig. He gave us a quick little 2025 walk around of the products Nelson Rig has to offer. It's up on the Tall Boys Facebook site and on the YouTube channel. It's its own separate little interview. And Nelson Rig, super great stuff. It was great to talk to Kyle in person. On a personal level, whenever the twins were born and we weren't really sure what their outlook was going to be, he has a son that went through the similar situation as we did. He reached out personally to me. I didn't know him from Adam, and it was really nice of him to do that. So getting to talk to him in person was really cool and kind of give thanks back for that. I've got a couple other just kind of oddball things that were out there, and for our guys that like four-wheelers, Kaio had something that I still to this day couldn't believe that somebody hadn't jumped on this opportunity to enter this market share. And that is a new liquid cooled 300cc race quad. Now, if you're not familiar with racing four-wheelers, whenever you get to be, I think it's 13 or 14 years old, a lot of kids are big enough for a 450 size race quad, but it says right on the manufacturer stickers that there's not anyone allowed to be under 18 years old on these things. And a lot of the race series follow that to the letter. So you've got this weird age gap where a kid's way too big for a TRX 90 or a Raptor 125, but they're not allowed to race a 450, even though they're probably out there riding them anyway. So what you end up seeing is a lot of people build hybrid race quads, where they'll take 250F motocross engines and put on full-size four-wheeler frames to kind of get through that little bit of an age gap. Well, Kaio came out with this 300cc bike that kind of fills that void, which I thought was pretty interesting.
So I know that not many really.
And it kind of had the size of a blaster, like an old Yamaha blaster. But 300cc delivery cam, liquid cooled. I believe it was right at about 37 and 38 horsepower, which is plenty for that size quad. Looked very well put together, and I think kind of in a dying four-wheeler race market, this thing is going to definitely claw its way into that segment. And as long as people are still racing them, they'll be selling these things, man. It's called the Jackal. So pretty interesting machine.
Race quad options across the board are extremely limited. That's why you pull up to local hare scrambles and it's all the same, clapped late 90s, early 2000s Hondas that are on their third or fourth engine rebuild.
Yep, we've talked about that.
Yeah.
And, I couldn't, me, I can't live well enough alone. But when I was walking through the show, of course, I saw a Harley Pan Am. And I had to do what I normally do. And the funny thing was, I didn't know there was a guy right behind me whenever I did this, and he was laughing his ass off the whole time.
What are we going to do with all this, brother?
Yeah, the guy got a kick out of that. He thought
given Harley's, they had to appeal to a completely new fan base, right? I'm surprised they didn't offer some kind of option to where you could get like all the stupid skulls and spikes and tassels and all the other stuff on your Harley adventure bike.
Yep. One last thing I'll share here. They did have a little tribute thing set up for Malcolm Smith, which I thought was really cool. They were selling T-shirts to fundraise some stuff, but unfortunately they were out by the time I got up there. But yeah, you could go up there and watch on any Sunday, pretty much the entire time of the show, which I thought was really interesting. And Wednesday night, they actually did a Q&A and did a little talk session thing about Malcolm. So that was really cool to see that. One last thing and we'll get into this and had to layer down, but there was a company called Moto Trainer, and they had full-sized, it was a gas 450 that was kind of cut away. And you had a TV screen in front of you, and you kind of controlled the bike like an arcade kind of setup. And it was really interesting. Had to layer down this week because I struggled riding the thing so much, because I got up there and the guy told me, he's like, "Have you ever rode a motorcycle before?" I said, "Yeah, since I was 5 years old, buddy." He's like, "You're going to struggle mightily on this thing because it does not ride like a motorcycle at all." And it was kind of odd to get used to it. But yeah, that was interesting. Had to layer down this week. Well, that kind of wraps up everything that we saw. And I will upload some other videos and stuff onto the actual Facebook page that we didn't get to tonight. But would you like to hear the planes, trains, and automobile story?
I was going to say, let's before we go to the next segment, hear a recap of your travel extravaganza.
All right, so I drove to Pittsburgh and was supposed to fly out 5:45 in the morning. Had a connecting flight at Reagan International, which is unfortunately where that American Airlines crash happened not long ago. And I was flying American Airlines, so I was already on edge as it was. But go through TSA in Pittsburgh, and the agent never hands me back my driver's license, and I did not catch that. So I get on the plane and I fly to Vegas. Show up to the show, get my badge, do my thing. And I'm going through the stuff on the show, and I got that new DJI knockoff camera holder deal, and I was using it to film everything. Well, it drains the battery pretty quickly on my phone. So I brought one of those little, spare rechargeable battery packs. As soon as I plugged it in, the battery pack thing started smoking, wouldn't charge my phone. So, all right, cool. I get my charger cable out, and they had plenty of places there to charge your phone. And I plug my charger cable in, and it decides it's not going to work anymore. So unfortunately, I was doing an interview with a guy that his company sold modular lights that went on the back of your helmet, and they would tie into the blinkers and stuff on your bike, kind of as a safety feature, So my phone dies about halfway through that interview, and that sucked. But guess what else was saved on my phone? The passes for the monorail to get back to my hotel.
That's okay. The Vegas monorail sucks anyway.
Yeah,
it's a slightly better WVU PRT.
I found that out very quickly. So I get up there and I don't have my pass, so I've got to pay $8 cash for a one-way pass to get to the hotel. And when I get to the hotel and I go to check in, that's when I realize I do not have my identification, and it is probably at the Pittsburgh TSA. So I had to go through a whole song and dance to even check into the hotel, right? So that took forever. Finally get checked in. My phone's still dead at this point, and there's no chargers in the hotel room. So I go downstairs to the little convenience store that they have in the bottom of the hotel, and I'm like, all right, I need a new charger cable. I'll buy this one. Yeah, it was $38, and that was half off. So God God help anybody that needs to buy it at full price.
Last time I was in Vegas, I paid, I think it was $32 for a little like travel size thing of Pepto-Bismol and a Dr. Pepper.
So I buy the charger cable, right? And it's a USB-C to USB-C. And I get into the hotel room, and none of the charger ports are just the small USB-C charger port. So then I have to go back down to the convenience store and buy a fucking charger block. The block was $43. I've got almost $80 in a phone charger, right? So I'm just like, I'm fed up at this point. And
I can't believe that you got suckered into spending the price of 2 cartons of eggs on a cable and a phone charge block.
So I'm fed up at this point, and I just want a beer, right? I just give me a freaking beer, please.
A $17 beer.
I couldn't even buy a beer. I didn't have my license. They wouldn't let me buy a beer because I didn't have my ID.
Man,
I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? So I get back to the hotel, and like, I walked around Vegas, around the hotel there a little bit, but I didn't do much. I was so aggravated. I just went to bed. So we wake up Friday morning to go to the last day of the show, and I get down on the little catwalk there for the monorail, and I'm looking around, and dude, this place is absolutely jam-packed with people trying to get to the show. And I asked the guys, yeah, we've been waiting here for an hour. No trams are showing up. Well, the monorail is broke. So we all had to call and get the shuttle bus to get down to the show. And by the time I did that, I'd only spent like maybe an hour and a half there on Friday, because here I am. I don't have an ID, and I know I'm going to have to go through some BS at TSA to get on the flight home. So I need to leave early. So, yep, I get in line. It takes an hour to even get up to the little, security booth, and I tell them what's going on. I don't have my identification. It's in Pittsburgh. And then here we go. I have to sit in this room and go through this 2-hour long, process to verify who the hell I am. Extra security. They did everything but cavity search me to let me through.
You could have volunteered. You could have volunteered for the cavity search.
I'll leave that to Chad. I'll let our buddy Chad do that. So by the time I get it all through security and everything, I'm just fed up, right? And I've got like 30 minutes till the plane leaves for now. Granted, the connecting flight is in Chicago, ORD. And I look over, and there's a slot machine there. I was like, I haven't gambled one time since I've been in Vegas. So I walk over, I throw $20 in it, I hit it, lose instantly, lost all $20. Like, well, that's a fitting end of my time in Vegas, right?
That was my experience too. I lost some money on was electronic blackjack or something like. I was like, nope, I'm good, never again. What was really disappointing for me when we went to Vegas was all the slot machines are almost giant iPads now.
Yeah.
I did get over to Fremont and check out some of the old electromechanical, like relay-based slot machines. Those are actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was not thrilled by my experience in Vegas, and it was significantly better than yours. So I can't imagine how you feel.
Don't worry, it gets better. It gets way better. So get on the plane. We go to take off, and dude, I've flown maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 times in my life. Not that much, but that was the worst turbulence I've ever felt in my entire life. I thought the wings had come off the plane. We were upside down at one point. There was a gentleman behind me that was absolutely crashing out. He was screaming at the top of his lungs. We were all going to die. It was not a good situation. So we end up, that kind of settles down. They come around, do their stewardess stuff. We get a drink and a cookie. And we actually made it to Chicago like 25 minutes early. And I'm like, all right, my layover was only like 50 minutes. So I'm like, okay, I got over an hour now to get to my next flight. We sat on the tarmac waiting for the gate to clear for like 33 minutes. And we finally get off the plane, and it's me and 6 other people are trying to catch this connecting flight to Pittsburgh. We're just running through the terminal at this point. So it landed in Terminal 1, and our return flight was in Terminal 3. And we're running along on the escalator trying to hurry up and get there. And the security guard guy says, "Are you guys going to miss a flight?" We're like, we need to get here quickly. He says, "Come with me." He takes us upstairs, and we get on this underground tram thing that takes you to Terminal 3. And he's like, "All right, you guys will be good. Awesome." Yeah, it took you outside of the security checkpoint outside of Terminal 3. And Terminal 3 was closed. You couldn't go that way.
Oh my gosh.
So whoop, there goes our return flight home. It's bye-bye. We've missed the flight. So Call United, they give us new tickets. I had to rent a hotel room at the Hilton in Chicago that was $263 by the time you paid taxes and everything.
Yep.
Still waiting on the reimbursement for that. I doubt I'll see it. And then here you go. I'm outside TSA checkpoint again with no ID. So flight left at 10:42 in the morning. I got there at like 7 o'clock in the morning. And the first question they asked me without my ID is, have you done the advanced screening in the last 7 days? Yes, I have. As a matter of fact, I did it yesterday. And that added another hour on my cavity search to get through TSA in Chicago. So by the time that I got to Pittsburgh, needless to say, I was not a very happy person. And when I got to the information desk where they had my ID and the lady started grilling me on who I was, I, for the most part, just grabbed the ID out of her hand and walked out of the airport. I had enough of that.
You should have just crashed out entirely.
Oh, dude.
You should have had to have been drug out of there by security.
Well, you know, I had fun at the show, but everything else sucked, and I'll never go back. It was awful.
I tell you what, I wish I'd gone to experience the show, but I'm glad I missed out on the madness, because it would have really sucked for me to have just left you and waved by from the plane as I had my ID, but you didn't.
I wouldn't have blamed you one bit. How many times have I just left everybody at the top of a hill climb while everybody's at the bottom? Been
That's
about
fair.
the same, wouldn't it?
Yep, that's fair.
All right, we go through some of the comments we got this evening. We appreciate everybody tuning in and watching and interacting with us. Dan Farnsworth says, that's a shame that so many newer models were not represented. I thought there would be at least a lot of brands and bikes represented. Yeah, you'd think for being the American International Motorcycle Show that they may have been a little bit more of a show, but it is what it is. Dan says, videos are not showing up on my end here. Yeah, I got that figured out. Let's see. Jeff Wright says the old Gas Pampera was basically a trials bike with a good seat. Awesome rocks bike. Oh yeah, I can imagine that. He also says, from what I know, from formal Ural owners, is that the coffee bar is a better use for them. That might be what that lady figured out. Matt Bell says it's got everything you need in a toolkit. That's definitely who I'm still getting my kit from. Yeah, he's talking about the cruise tool stuff.
Yep.
And it would cost more to piece the kit together. And that's the thing. Like,
yeah,
you could find the bags and stuff super cheap, but buying all the little individual tools is where the price starts adding up.
Yep, absolutely.
Tyler Vincent says he had a set of KKEs on his KTM. Also, honestly, solid wheels for the money. Yeah, and like we mentioned, I think most of them are kind of all made in the same place now. That was one funny thing. So they had like, They just called it Chinese pavilion, which I thought maybe a little racist, but you had every like nice CNC branded machine, kickstand, foot peg, whatever, what have you. They were all there. And honestly, dude, like every single booth was exactly the same. So all those nice bling Amazon cheap parts you get, I met all the people that manufacture those. There's like 30 of them all in one place.
Did you have a favorite so I know who to order from next time?
I'd say Nice CNC is probably at least the one that I know.
I've ordered some nice CNC stuff in the past.
Yeah.
It was nice.
Yeah. And it was CNC'd, maybe.
It was CNC'd.
Dan says, I enjoyed Trevor's statement and agree that they should have incorporated the name of the coffee bar. Euro love our coffee. That was pretty good and need to be mentioned in the comments. Funny. John Stewart says he uses ram mounts all the time at Brass Pro. Yeah, I'm sure you do on the boats and stuff. Matt Bell, that's freaking cool. Never imagined they'd use ram mounts in the mines. Yep, hopefully it's MSHA approved. And last, Mr. Greg Blakey says Vegas is a scam. I would wholeheartedly agree with that, Mr. Greg. All right, well, that's going to bring up a little bit of Had to Lay Her Down starring...
It's you, Hoss.
It's me, Hoss.
Did you run into some clippings? Did Barb take the kids? Well, Hoss, maybe you had to lay her down.
I got to look through my video files here because I actually did save that as Had to Lay Her Down, which I thought was funny. All right, here we go. So a little backstory. Like I said, this is a gas bike that's kind of cut off on the top. And my problem with this thing was I was constantly trying to lean to turn, but it wouldn't let you do that. You had to cut the handlebars like as hard as you could, and then it would like slowly start leaning left and right, which was super weird to get used to. And I couldn't get the thing into neutral and first gear.
So it's just like a real bike.
Yeah.
Can't find neutral.
Can't find neutral. Like I said, you can see me trying to lean, and I'm already off the track. I hit several hay bales.
Right for the crowd. Are you sure I thought a Ford Mustang simulator?
It could be. The guy into the crowd. The guy did say I was the only one to eventually make a lap, so I did kind of get it figured out. It just took a while. You see, I'm still trying to lean, can't turn. Take out the course marshal guy. And this goes
supposed to be a simulator to help learn. That is horrible.
It was pretty laggy. Like, as far as like arcade style machines, that's probably the best one that I've ever tried. It wasn't like Cruising USA or anything like that back in the day. But
I guess when I say horrible, I mean like as a
just killed the flag guy right there.
Yeah.
It was interesting. Yeah, see it crashed there pretty hard.
Yeah. It's so counterintuitive, like turning the handlebars to lean the bike.
Yeah. See, hay bale absolutely just broke my spine there. Not a good setup. But it was interesting. That'd be something cool. Like, I don't know how much it was to rent, but like if you had something like that at the 304, that'd be kind of neat to have people try.
First man to make a full lap after a 6-pack gets a trophy.
I feel like if I was slightly drunk, I would have done a lot better, honestly.
Might have helped.
It might have helped. All right. Well, we appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. That's going to do it for us. And we'll catch you guys next time on Tall Boys
and Track Masters. Thanks for your time, guys.
See y'all.